baby. Good morning. It is good to be here with you this morning. It's good to see all of you with us this morning. There are a couple things I want to cover before we get into everything. I don't know if it's been mentioned, but tonight is the church Christmas party. And if you have turned in your registration and done all the things you're supposed to do, I want to make sure you remember that. And if you need to show up, we might could squeeze you in, but don't tell anybody. I'll see if I can pull some strings. But anyway, that's tonight. Don't forget that. We had somebody from the Boys and Girls Club on Thursday bring us some things last minute. They're doing an angel tree. And what those are is there are certain kids who go to the Boys and Girls Club who are there on scholarship based on income. And so those children who can't afford, whose families are for whatever reason can't afford Christmas have filled out a wish list. And so they've brought us only 6 of those. That's why we're not doing a full church thing. So I'm putting that out there. If you would like to participate in that, if you want to donate money to it, if you want to take one of those and fulfill it yourself or in your small group or whatever, see myself or Janine. I don't have them with me this morning, but we can find a way to get you plugged into that to help a kid have a good Christmas. And so there's 6 of those. You can take one for yourself, your family, your small group and fulfill it. Or you can get a group of you together, or however you want to do it. You know, it's up to you. We didn't have time to separate it out and make a big thing, so we're just going to go like that. We are stepping out of John, at least for a little while, because if you've been around, you know that one of the things that I always enjoy doing is we step out and we focus on Christmas. I do that usually through the month of December, and as I said in class this morning, the reason we do that is because the whole world is in some small way focused on Jesus. And even if they have an incomplete understanding of it, even if they don't totally get what they're doing, they're thinking about it in a small way. And this is our opportunity to engage that and to engage the culture where they are and to point them towards the true Christ instead of whatever it is that we end up celebrating. So, we're going to step out. This is a good time. In the next 3 weeks, this week and the next following 2 weeks, we're going to do a series I'm calling Christmas Light. And if you have friends, this is a good opportunity to invite them. You can say, hey, you want to come to church with me on Sunday? We're just going to talk about Christmas. It's going to be just about Jesus. It's going to be just about Christmas. It's a beautiful thing. It's a good time to invite people and pull people in. So I throw all that out there. We're calling it Christmas Light because there's light associated with Jesus and with Jesus' birth. And this time of year, people are out putting up Christmas lights. How many of you have your Christmas lights up already? It's okay, raise your hand. You don't ask that in East Texas because everybody's like, well, I have them all year round. Is there a hurricane or something? But some of you have put them up, right? And you have them up. My kids love it. Allie and Olivia will drive down the road. Allie, there's lights on my side. It's a big thing, right? And we like to look at the Christmas lights. Sometimes, though, our Christmas lights don't always turn out right. Cue that next one, Jason.
You want to hurry this up, Clark? I'm freezing my baguettes off. 250 strands of light, 100 individual bulbs per strand for a grand total of 25,000 imported Italian twinkle lights. Hey! 25,000.
Well, I hope nobody I know drives by and sees me standing in the yard staring at the house in my pajamas.
If they know your dad, they won't think anything of it.
Fire it up, Dad!
I dedicate this house to the Griswold family Christmas. Oh. Drum roll, please. Drum roll.
Just go ahead and kill it right there, Jason.
Beautiful, Clark.
Those of you who are visiting with us, when people ask you, what'd you talk about in church today? You say, we watched Christmas Vacation. Sometimes that's how we feel this time of year. Who turned out the lights? Why is there not any power going to my lights? Why is this not working? And we laugh about it because Clark makes it funny, and that movie is a classic that in my family has to be watched every Christmas. But it illustrates something that we struggle with this time of year. Because this time of year, there are a lot of people who are walking around saying, who turned out the lights? Because they feel like it's a dark time of year. It may be that they're remembering loved ones that they've lost, because this time of year brings up nostalgia. And we think about Christmases before. And there are a lot of people in our number alone who are going to be experiencing their first Christmas without someone this year. And that's hard. And so they may put on a good front and show you a good face, but inside they're thinking, who turned out the lights? It may be that some people are wondering if there's even going to be a holiday at all, because the credit card's maxed out, the checkbook is in the red, and there's still 3/4 of a wish list that the kids have given them to get through. And they don't know if they're going to make it. And we laugh and we scoff, but it's a very real thing that parents, and especially dads, this time of year feel this pressure that if I don't get whatever the cool new toy is, that I've somehow failed my family as a father. And inside, on the outside, they may be singing joy to the world, but on the inside, they're thinking, who turned out the lights? It may be that we're struggling for whatever other reason, that weird feeling that you've had. You know something's wrong. You know something inside of you is not the way it's supposed to be, but you haven't gone to the doctor because you're scared of what the doctor's going to tell you. And you know if you go, you may find out something that you don't want to find out. So you skip along and you sing Angels We Have Heard on High, but inside you're thinking, who turned out the lights? I got a call this week that some very, very dear friends of mine, people that I love like my own family, found out their youngest son had taken his life. There's no way you address that. There's no way to give hope in that situation. And this time of year, that weighs on your heart, because that family is trying to figure out who turned out the lights. And the darkness is creeping in. In Israel, there was a time that was very similar to that. In Israel, if you go back and you look, there was 700 years before the birth of Christ, during the time of the prophet Isaiah, they were wondering who had turned out the lights. Because the kingdom was divided into a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. And neither kingdom had a ruler who was godly. Nobody was consulting the Lord, and darkness had covered the entire land. Like two bratty kids, these sibling kingdoms fought and argued and bickered back and forth. And the darkness descended on the land, and the end of the world seemed nigh. They knew that the vast hordes of the Assyrian army were threatening to sweep down and turn them all into slaves, and they were terrified. Yet nobody was seeking God. They simply cowered in the darkness, hiding. The man that was most filled with panic is Ahaz, the king of Judah. Ahaz, Isaiah tells us, Ahaz's heart and the heart of his people shook as the trees of the forest shake before the wind. Ahaz was terrified. He was a weak king. He was a wishy-washy leader. He's so afraid of losing his throne that he builds altars to idols and to local gods in the temple of the Lord. And he doesn't stop there. He even burns his own children as sacrifices to these pagan gods. The king of Israel in the north is performing similar acts, and there's darkness everywhere across the land. Then in 722 BC, the Assyrian army does swoop in. And trees are chopped down, cities are burned, fields are ruined, and the entire northern kingdom, the 10 lost tribes of Israel, they'll become called, are carried into captivity. And the darkness is everywhere. Isaiah describes it like this in Isaiah chapter 8, verses 21 and 22. Distressed and hungry, they will roam through the land. When they're famished, they will become enraged, and looking upward will curse their king and their God. Then they will look toward the earth and see only distress and darkness and fearful gloom, and they will be thrust into utter darkness. In the depths of the darkness, they don't reach for God. Isaiah says they dive farther into the darkness. When men tell you to consult mediums and spiritists who whisper and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Why consult the dead on behalf of the living? To the law and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, they have no light of dawn. Isaiah says it's darkness. And you guys are consulting your dead relatives. You guys are consulting false gods. You guys are looking for everything to clear the darkness. Instead, you're only plunging deeper and deeper into it. And that's the state of the kingdom. But the amazing thing is the promise of God. Despite their rejection, despite their ungodly culture, despite their ungodly leaders, despite their embrace of the darkness, God promises a light. In chapter 9, nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who were in distress. In the past, he humbled the land of Zebulun, the land of Naphtali, but in the future, he will honor Galilee of the Gentiles by the way of the sea along the Jordan. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. God promises a light. The Lord is going to shine a beacon into this darkness. The Lord is going to drive out the darkness. This great heavenly light will be a child, will be a special child. And chapter 9 goes on to talk about all the great things that this Messiah will be. This light will shine and it will drive the darkness away. He will be called Wonderful Counselor. He will be called Mighty God. He will be called Everlasting Father, and he will be called Prince of Peace. And Isaiah says of the end, his kingdom will have no end. Will go on forever because the light will never, ever be extinguished. That's the promise. That promise is still here. Because there are a lot of us who are fumbling around in darkness today, and we're saying, hey God, we could use a wonderful counselor. We could really use somebody who could help us through the emotional hurts, through the pain, through all the things that we need. We could use a wonderful counselor. We could use a mighty God. We could use someone who came in with power and with force, who will drive the darkness out of our land. We could use that because we sympathize with Israel. We sympathize with a culture bathed in darkness, where we feel like there is no light. We sympathize with that, and we say we could use an everlasting Father who will never leave, never forsake, who will be here forever, and most of all, we could use a Prince of Peace. And we say, God, when are you going to send that King? Because it's kind of overdue. Yet darkness is a closed circuit. We feel isolated. We feel trapped in that darkness, and instead of looking for a light, we dive deeper into it, just like the children of Israel. But God says that's not the end. There is a light. In the beginning was the Word, John says. John chapter 1. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. He goes on in verse 9. The true light, the real light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. This is the birth of Jesus in chapter 1, verse 9. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world didn't know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, full of grace and truth. You see, darkness is not a force. Darkness is not a thing. Our culture teaches us that darkness is this power, that the powers of darkness will overcome us, that darkness descends on us and we must fight against it. Darkness is not a thing. Darkness is not a power. Darkness is simply the absence of light. But the darkness doesn't overcome anything. The tiniest lights, the light from a cell phone, the light from an iPad, the light from a screen can illuminate. The tiniest lights make a huge difference because darkness can't overcome light. Darkness is simply light being taken away. I say to you this morning, if you're walking in darkness, it's because you haven't run to the light. This time of year is a time when darkness descends, and darkness feels so overpowering, but it's not. It cannot overpower the everlasting light. That's what we're here for this morning. We're going to sing a song. The song is to give you an opportunity. Go to the back of the room. You'll find people in the back of the room who will pray with you there. We put them in the back of the room so that you don't have to do the old church walk of shame. We don't care. Nobody is worried about what you've done or who you are, or what you're struggling with, except to offer you the light that will drive the darkness away. When we sing this song, go back there and pray with somebody. And seek God. God, bring your light. Fill me with your light. Illuminate. That's what we're here for this morning. And I encourage you, right now, seek the light while together we stand and sing.